They threw rejected Omega into the Moonfall chamber. When it opened, she walked out as chosen Luna. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. Elara was an Omega, cast aside by her family and pack, her future looking darker than the night sky. She had been rejected by every Alpha she encountered, her scent not strong enough to capture their attention, leaving her in a constant state of loneliness and despair. She was nothing more than a forgotten soul in a world that only valued strength. Yet, as Elara sat in the dimly lit chamber, the cold walls of the Moonfall chamber pressing down on her, she couldn't help but wonder if this was truly the end. The Moonfall chamber was a place of finality, where the weakest were sent to be forgotten. It was said that only those with true worth could survive the trials of the chamber. Elara, however, had no hope. She had nothing left to lose. As the doors of the chamber shut behind her with a heavy thud, a sense of finality took hold. The air was thick with the weight of rejection, the kind that seeped into her bones. But deep within, something stirred. She didn't know why she was still standing, why she refused to collapse like so many others. Something in her whispered that this was not the end. She would not be defeated so easily. Just as the moonlight filtered through the cracks in the chamber's stone, a strange warmth enveloped her. Her hands tingled, a faint glow pulsing from her fingertips. For the first time in her life, she felt powerful. The chamber, once oppressive, now seemed to hum with energy. The walls seemed to recede, the cold stone replaced by a sense of belonging. And then, just when Elara thought she might be dreaming, the chamber doors slowly creaked open. The light outside spilled into the room, and with it came a presence that took her breath away. Standing in the doorway was none other than the Alpha King himself, Darius. His presence was overwhelming, his icy gaze fixed on her, as if he had been waiting for this moment all his life. As Elara stepped forward, she felt the bond between them snap into place. She wasn't just an Omega anymore. She was his Luna. The world outside the chamber would never be the same, and neither would she. Elara could hardly believe what was happening. She stood there, the glow of the Moonfall chamber still faintly surrounding her, as Alpha King Darius walked into the room. His silver-gray eyes locked onto hers, and for the first time in her life, Elara felt seen. The weight of his gaze was both overwhelming and comforting, as if he was looking right through her, into the depths of her soul. You, Darius's voice was low, but it sent a chill down her spine. You are the one. Elara's heart raced. She had never imagined that a moment like this would come. She had been cast aside, humiliated, and abandoned, and now, here she was, standing in front of the most powerful man in the kingdom, the Alpha King himself, who was staring at her like she was something important. Elara could barely find the words to respond. Her throat felt tight, as if the very air had thickened with tension. I never thought it would be you, Darius continued, his gaze softening. The Moonfall chamber, the trials, the rejection, it was all part of your path. You were meant to be here. You were meant to be mine. His words echoed in her mind, but it didn't make sense. She was just an Omega. She had no special gifts, no unique talents. She was the one who had been left behind, the one who had failed. She had no place in this world. Yet, somehow here she stood. The chamber doors were still open behind him, the night air spilling into the room, but it was as if time had stopped. Elara felt a strange pull toward Darius, something invisible but undeniable. She wanted to take a step forward, but fear held her back. What if she was wrong? What if this was just another cruel joke? Do not be afraid, Darius said, sensing her hesitation. He stepped closer, his movements fluid, confident. I know what you have suffered. You are not the broken Omega they told you were. You are stronger than they know. As he reached out, Elara instinctively took a step back. She had never been touched by someone like this, someone who exuded such power and dominance. But when his hand brushed against hers, it felt like a spark, a jolt of warmth shooting through her body. It was a sensation she had never experienced, and for the first time, she felt like she belonged. I will protect you, Darius said, his voice gentle, yet firm. You are not worthless, Elara. You are my mate, my Luna, and I will stand by you, no matter what. The words he spoke felt like a promise, a vow that echoed deep within her heart. But there was still so much she didn't understand. How had this happened? How had she gone from being rejected and discarded to being chosen by the Alpha King? Why me? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Darius looked at her with an expression that was almost tender. Because you are the one the moon goddess has chosen for me, he replied. It was always meant to be this way. Your power, your strength, it was hidden until now. You were never meant to be an ordinary Omega. You are destined for greatness, for more than you could ever imagine. Elara's mind spun as she tried to process everything. Her life had been a constant battle, a fight for survival, and now, in one moment, it had all changed. She had never believed in fate, in destiny. But the connection she felt to Darius was undeniable. She couldn't deny the pull, the bond that was forming between them. Come with me, Darius said, extending his hand once more. This time, Elara didn't hesitate. She placed her hand in his, and as their fingers touched, the world seemed to shift. The chamber, the darkness, the rejection, everything faded away. In its place was a new beginning. Together, they would face whatever came next. Elara wasn't just an Omega anymore. She was his Luna, and her destiny was now intertwined with his. As they walked out of the chamber, the cold night air felt warmer, the stars brighter. Elara took a deep breath, feeling for the first time in her life that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Elara walked beside Alpha King Darius, her hand still resting in his, the bond between them now undeniable. The cold night air brushed against her skin, but it no longer felt biting. Instead, it was strangely comforting, as if the universe itself had shifted in her favor. As they moved through the moonlit courtyard, the sounds of the castle seemed distant, muffled by the heavy weight of the moment. Her heart raced with a mix of fear and excitement, emotions she couldn't quite understand, but Darius's presence beside her grounded her. You are mine now, Elara. Darius's voice was deep, a whisper meant only for her. And I will not let anyone hurt you again. His words sent a shiver down her spine, but this time it was different. It wasn't fear, it was the recognition of something powerful, something true. Elara had never felt like this before, so exposed, yet somehow invincible. The life she once knew, the rejection, the isolation, all of it seemed so far away now, like another lifetime. As they entered the grand hall of the castle, Elara could feel the eyes of the pack members upon them, their whispers hushed but heavy with disbelief. Darius led her to the center of the room, where a large stone fireplace crackled with warmth. His gaze swept over the crowd, and Elara felt every person in the room fall silent, the tension thick in the air. Elara, Darius said, turning to face her, his eyes holding an intensity that took her breath away. This is where your true journey begins. The moon goddess has chosen you for me, and now, we claim what is rightfully ours. Elara looked around at the faces of the pack. The same pack that had rejected her, that had cast her aside as nothing more than an insignificant Omega. Now, they were all watching, waiting for her to prove herself, to take her place beside Darius. What do I do now? Elara asked, her voice trembling despite her efforts to remain calm. Darius smiled, a small but reassuring curve of his lips. You don't have to do anything. You are already perfect as you are. He stepped closer, his hand gently cupping her chin, lifting her face to meet his. The bond between us is stronger than any trial or rejection. You were always meant to be my Luna, and nothing will change that. The words felt like a promise, one that resonated deep within her. Elara had spent her whole life believing she wasn't worthy of love, that she would never have a place in this world. Yet, here she was, standing beside the Alpha King, the most powerful wolf in the realm, and she was his chosen mate. The sound of footsteps echoed through the hall, pulling Elara from her thoughts. She turned to see the pack elders approaching, their expressions unreadable. They had been silent during the exchange, but now, their presence seemed more imposing than ever. The leader of the elders, a tall, grizzled wolf with silver hair, stepped forward, bowing his head respectfully to Darius. Alpha King, Luna, he said, his voice reverent, though there was a hint of hesitation in his words. We We never thought this day would come. Darius nodded, his hand still resting on Elara's shoulder. None of us did, he said, his tone firm yet understanding. But it is here now. Elara is my mate, and I will not let anyone question her place by my side. The elder hesitated for a moment longer before speaking again, his eyes now resting on Elara. You are the one chosen by the moon goddess, Luna? He asked, his voice carrying a mix of awe and skepticism. Elara nodded, feeling a rush of emotion overwhelm her. She had never been sure of her worth, but now, standing in the presence of the pack elders, she knew she had to stand tall. Yes, she said, her voice stronger than she expected. I am the one. Darius's hand tightened around hers in a silent show of support, and for the first time, Elara felt truly seen, truly understood. The whispers around the room grew louder, but this time, they weren't filled with rejection, they were filled with awe, with respect. Elara had gone from being the outcast to becoming the Luna, the Alpha King's mate, the one chosen by the moon goddess. The weight of it all was overwhelming, but in Darius's presence, it felt right. This was her destiny, her true purpose. And as Darius led her to the throne, her heart swelled with a feeling she had never known, belonging. She was finally home. Elara sat beside Darius, her heart still racing from everything that had happened. The weight of the throne room, the eyes of the pack, and the elders watching her, was heavy, but for the first time in her life, it didn't feel like a burden. It felt like a place she belonged. As Darius reached for her hand once more, Elara looked up at him, her eyes wide with a mix of wonder and disbelief. Is this real? She asked quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Darius smiled softly, his silver-gray eyes locking onto hers. It is more real than anything else you have ever known, Elara. This is your destiny, and mine. Together, we are stronger than we could ever be apart. His words were like a promise, filling her with warmth that spread from her chest to the tips of her fingers. The room around them was still, silent, the pack watching with bated breath, waiting for the next move. But it didn't feel like the oppressive silence it once would have. Now it felt like the beginning of something new, something powerful. Elara had never imagined this kind of life, standing beside the Alpha King, her mate, as his Luna. She had always been the one who was cast aside, forgotten, and now she was at the heart of the pack, at the side of the most powerful Alpha in the realm. The journey that had led her here was long, filled with pain, but it had brought her to a place she could never have dreamed of. You were always meant to be here, Darius said, his voice strong but gentle. The moon goddess chose you, and now, you are my Luna. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. You are everything I need. His words rang in her ears, a balm to the wounds that had been festering for so long. Elara looked around at the pack again, at the faces of the wolves who had once turned their backs on her. They were all watching her, but now, instead of sneers or laughter, she saw respect in their eyes. They may have once rejected her, but now they saw her for who she truly was, Darius's mate, his Luna, the one chosen by the moon goddess. And they knew that she was not to be underestimated. The elder who had spoken earlier stepped forward again, this time with a look of respect in his eyes. Luna, he said, bowing his head. We were wrong to doubt. You have proven your strength and your place here. The Alpha King has chosen well. Elara's heart swelled with pride at the elder's words. It wasn't just that they accepted her now. It was that they had seen her for what she truly was. The rejection she had faced all her life had been replaced with something far more valuable. Acceptance, not just from Darius, but from the entire pack. She wasn't just the broken Omega anymore. She was their Luna. Thank you, Elara said, her voice steady, stronger than it had ever been. But it is not just Darius who has chosen me. I have chosen him too. We are bound by something more powerful than anyone can understand. The room seemed to hold its breath for a moment, the pack elders exchanging glances, and then, one by one, they nodded, their expressions softening with understanding. Elara had not only been chosen by Darius, but she had claimed him as well. She was not just a passive figure in this relationship. She was an equal, standing beside him, ready to rule alongside him as his Luna. As Darius looked at her, his gaze filled with admiration, Elara felt something shift within herself. She wasn't just a woman standing beside the Alpha King. She was the woman who would help lead the pack, who would support Darius, but also shape the future of their people. The moon goddess has truly blessed us, Darius said, his voice filled with certainty. Together, we will be unstoppable. Elara smiled, the weight of the moment settling into her bones, as if she had always been destined for this role, as if the entire universe had been preparing her for this moment her entire life. And as Darius took her hand and led her to the center of the room, she felt the pack's eyes upon her. But this time, she was ready. She was no longer the discarded Omega. She was Luna, and her reign would be one of power, of justice, and of love. The journey ahead would be difficult, but she was not afraid. She had found her place, her purpose, and the man who would stand beside her as they faced everything the future had in store. Elara stood beside Darius, her heart still racing with the overwhelming emotions of the past few days. She had been thrust into a world she never imagined, one filled with power, danger, and responsibility. But in this moment, standing next to the Alpha King, she felt something she had never felt before: peace. The castle around her, once imposing and intimidating, now felt like a home, a place where she was not only accepted but needed. The bond between her and Darius had only grown stronger since that fateful night in the Moonfall chamber, and with each passing moment, Elara began to understand the depth of her new life. As Luna, she had a duty, not just to Darius, but to the entire pack, to guide them and help them flourish. It was a responsibility that weighed heavily on her shoulders, but with Darius by her side, she knew she could handle it. The days following her acceptance as Luna were filled with preparations. The pack was eager to see her take her rightful place at Darius's side, but Elara knew there was much to be done. She had to learn the intricacies of pack leadership, the delicate balance between strength and compassion, and the trust of the people she was now bound to protect. It was not an easy task, but Darius made sure to guide her every step of the way. "You will learn quickly, Elara," Darius had told her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder as they walked through the halls of the castle. "Your strength is not in how much you know, but in your heart. The pack will follow you, not because of your power, but because of your heart." His words were a comfort, though they came with their own set of challenges. Darius had been raised to rule with an iron fist, to command the loyalty of his pack through strength and fear, but Elara knew that she would lead with compassion, understanding, and love. It was a delicate balance, one she had to learn. As the days turned into weeks, Elara began to find her footing. She attended meetings with the pack leaders, listened to the concerns of the wolves, and slowly but surely, she started to earn their trust. Some of the older pack members were skeptical at first, but they couldn't deny the bond between her and Darius, the undeniable strength that radiated from their union. There were still challenges to face, of course. There were those who believed that Elara was nothing more than a rejected Omega, that she wasn't worthy to be Luna, but Darius stood by her, unwavering. "They will learn," he told her one night, as they sat together in the garden, watching the stars. "The pack will come to see what I see in you. You are more than just a mate, Elara. You are my partner, my equal." His words warmed her heart, and for the first time in her life, Elara truly believed in her worth. She was not just a discarded Omega, she was a force to be reckoned with. Her compassion, her strength, and her unwavering belief in the pack were her greatest gifts, and she would use them to lead. As time went on, Elara began to see the changes in the pack. The wolves who had once rejected her now respected her, and those who had doubted her abilities began to come to her for advice. She was becoming the leader she had always dreamed of, not because of her title, but because of the respect she had earned through hard work and dedication. One evening, as Elara and Darius sat together, discussing the future of their pack, Darius looked at her with pride. "You've come so far," he said softly. "I knew from the moment we met that you were destined for greatness." Elara smiled, feeling the weight of his words settle in her heart. "Thank you, Darius. I couldn't have done it without you." Darius took her hand, his fingers gently brushing against hers. "You have always had the strength inside you, Elara. I just helped you see it." And as they sat there, under the night sky, Elara realized that her journey was just beginning. The challenges would come, the trials would be many, but she was no longer the Omega she once was. She was Luna, a leader in her own right, and with Darius by her side, there was nothing she couldn't face. Together, they would rule. Together, they would conquer, and together, they would build a future filled with strength, love, and unity. Elara had settled into her new role as Luna, but the road ahead was still filled with challenges. The pack had begun to accept her, but not everyone was as willing to follow her as Darius had hoped. Some still doubted her worth, questioning how an Omega, rejected by the world, could possibly lead the strongest pack in the realm. Yet, Elara's resolve only grew stronger with each passing day. She had never asked for this life, but now that she had it, she would protect it with everything she had. Darius stood by her side, but it was clear that the path to full acceptance would take time. He had never been an easy leader, ruling with strength and authority, and although he had chosen her, he was not immune to the old ways of thinking that still lingered in their pack. One evening, as they sat in their chambers, discussing the future, Elara's gaze drifted to the window, where the moon hung high in the sky. It was a familiar sight, but now, it felt different. The moon, the symbol of her destiny, seemed to glow brighter than ever before. "What's on your mind?" Darius asked, sensing her unease. Elara turned to face him, a soft smile playing on her lips. "I'm thinking about our future," she said. "About the pack, about us. There are still those who question my place here, but I know that if we stand together, we can overcome anything." Darius nodded, his eyes filled with pride. "We will stand together. You are my Luna, and nothing will change that. But I understand your concerns. We have a long road ahead of us, but we will walk it together." His words were a comfort, but Elara knew that the true test of her strength was yet to come. She had seen the whispers behind her back, heard the doubts in the eyes of those who were reluctant to accept her. There were those who would challenge her every step of the way, but Elara was not the same woman she had been when she first arrived at the Moonfall chamber. She was stronger now, not just in body, but in heart. The days grew colder, and as the season changed, the pack began to face new threats. Rival packs, who had long watched the northern territories, now sought to challenge Darius's rule. They saw weakness in the unity between Darius and Elara, and they hoped to exploit it. One evening, a messenger arrived at the castle with news that the Silverfang pack was moving towards their territory, preparing to strike. Elara felt a chill run down her spine. The Silverfangs had always been a fierce rival, known for their ruthless tactics and cunning. Darius, as always, was ready for war, but Elara knew that a war would not solve their problems. "We can't keep fighting like this," Elara said firmly, standing beside Darius as they discussed their strategy. "There's another way. We need to show them that we are united, that we are stronger together, not divided." Darius looked at her, his expression unreadable for a moment, but then a small smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "I know you're right," he said, his voice low but full of determination. "We'll meet them head on, but we'll do it on our terms. Together, we will prove that we are a force to be reckoned with." The plan was set. Elara would lead the negotiations, something she had never thought possible when she first arrived in the pack. But she had earned her place, and now, it was time to prove that her strength lay not just in her bond with Darius, but in her ability to lead. The next day, Elara and Darius rode out to meet the Silverfangs, their pack at their side, ready for whatever lay ahead. As they approached the border of their territory, Elara could see the Silverfang wolves gathered in the distance, their eyes filled with challenge and disdain. But Elara held her head high, her heart steady, knowing that this was her moment. She would not be the weak Omega they once knew. She was Luna, and she would fight for her pack, for Darius, and for the future they had built together. As they met on the battlefield, Elara stood between the two armies, her presence commanding attention. She spoke with authority, her voice clear and strong, telling the Silverfangs that they would not be intimidated. "This pack is mine," she said, her words carrying across the field, "and I will fight for it, no matter what. If you seek war, you will have it. But know this, you will never break us. Together, we are stronger than you can ever imagine." Her words struck the Silverfangs like a lightning bolt, and for the first time, they hesitated. The pack leaders exchanged uneasy glances, but Elara's confidence was unwavering. She had stepped into her role as Luna, and she would not back down. In the end, the Silverfangs retreated, their challenge unanswered, and Elara's position as Luna was solidified, not through force, but through the strength of her will. The victory was not just a triumph for the pack, It was a victory for Elara, for the woman she had become, and for the future she and Darius would build together. The victory over the Silverfang pack had given Elara and Darius a moment of peace, but Elara knew that peace in their world was always temporary. The challenges they faced were far from over, and now, more than ever, Elara understood the weight of her role as Luna. The pack looked to her for guidance, for strength, and she couldn't afford to let them down. As the days passed, the reality of leadership settled in. Elara spent her time with the pack, listening to their concerns, making decisions, and learning how to balance her compassion with the tough choices that were sometimes necessary. She could no longer afford to be the fragile Omega who had been cast aside. She was a leader now, and she had to rise to the occasion. Darius was always by her side, supporting her, but Elara knew that this journey wasn't just about their bond. It was about proving herself, to the pack and to herself, that she was capable of leading them. One evening, as Elara stood on the balcony overlooking the castle grounds, she felt a familiar presence beside her. Darius's hand rested on her shoulder, his warmth a steady comfort in the cool night air. "You've done well, Elara," he said, his voice soft, yet filled with admiration. Elara turned to look at him, a smile tugging at her lips. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied. "You've taught me so much, but there is still so much more to learn." Darius nodded, his eyes filled with pride. "You're stronger than you know, Elara. I see it every day. The pack sees it too." His words warmed her heart, and she felt a surge of gratitude for the man standing beside her, the man who had chosen her, who believed in her even when she didn't believe in herself. As the days turned into weeks, the pack grew stronger under Elara's leadership. Her once unshakable doubts were slowly replaced by a quiet confidence. She had earned the respect of the wolves, not through force, but through her unwavering dedication to them. Elara knew that leadership wasn't just about being strong. It was about being there for the pack, listening to their needs, and making decisions that would benefit everyone, not just the powerful. But as her confidence grew, so did the tensions within their territory. The neighboring packs, once hesitant to challenge Darius's rule, were now testing the boundaries, pushing their limits. Elara knew that her role wasn't just to guide the pack through internal struggles, but also to ensure their survival against external threats. One day, word came that a new threat had emerged. An alpha from a distant pack had begun to gather his forces, making a play for control over the northern territories. Elara felt a knot tighten in her stomach as she relayed the news to Darius. He listened carefully, his jaw clenched in determination. "We can't let him take what's ours," Darius said, his voice filled with a resolve that mirrored Elara's own. "We won't." Elara's heart raced as she knew the stakes had just become higher. This wasn't just about proving herself as Luna. It was about protecting everything they had built, everything they had fought for. "What's our next move?" Elara asked, her voice steady, though her mind raced with strategies and plans. Darius looked at her, his eyes full of respect. "We fight, Elara, but we don't fight with brute force alone. We will use our minds, our allies, and most importantly, we will fight with unity. The pack has never been stronger, and together, we will show them that no one can take what is ours." Elara nodded, her heart filled with a fire she hadn't realized was burning inside her. She had always known that the road to becoming Luna wouldn't be easy, but she hadn't fully grasped how difficult it would be to protect everything she loved. Still, there was no turning back now. She was ready for whatever came next. As they prepared for the coming conflict, Elara found herself reflecting on how far she had come. From the rejected Omega, hiding in the shadows, to the Luna who would stand alongside the Alpha King to defend their territory, she had changed. The woman she had once been was gone, replaced by someone stronger, more capable, and ready to lead. But it wasn't just about her own growth. It was about the future she and Darius would build together. They would face this new threat, not as individuals, but as a united force, stronger together than they could ever be apart. Elara knew that the true test of her leadership was just beginning. The road ahead would be filled with challenges, but she was no longer afraid. She had found her place, her purpose, and she would defend it with everything she had. The tension in the air was thick as Elara and Darius prepared for the confrontation with the new Alpha that threatened their kingdom. The news of this ambitious Alpha's movements had spread like wildfire, stirring unease throughout their territory. Elara knew that their pack's strength was not just in their warriors, but in their unity, and if they were to overcome this challenge, they would need to stand together. The stakes were higher than ever. As Elara stood before the War Council, the weight of leadership settled onto her shoulders like a mantle. She had proven herself as Luna, but now, she would have to prove her worth in the most crucial test of all, protecting the pack from a threat that sought to tear them apart. The room was filled with pack leaders, each one watching her closely, waiting for her to speak. Darius stood by her side, his presence a constant source of strength. This Alpha believes that we are weak, that our bond is a weakness, Elara said, her voice steady and unwavering. But he is wrong. We are stronger than he can ever imagine, and I will show him just how wrong he is. Darius looked at her with pride, his silver-gray eyes filled with trust. You are right, Elara, he said softly. We are united, and together, we will fight. We will show them what it means to challenge the Northern Territories. As Elara addressed the council, her voice grew more powerful, her resolve harder. We will not back down. We will defend what is ours, but we will not be ruled by fear. The moment we let fear take control, we lose. We fight with strength, with strategy, and with the unshakable bond that unites us. The room was silent for a moment, and then the leaders began to nod in agreement. Elara had earned their respect, not by force, but through her unwavering belief in their strength as a pack. They were ready to stand by her. As the battle plans were made, Elara's mind raced with strategies. She knew that this Alpha was powerful, but he was also arrogant, and that arrogance would be his downfall. Elara understood that winning the fight wasn't just about physical strength. It was about using their unity, their bond, to outsmart him. The night before the battle, Elara found herself standing alone in the garden, the cool night air brushing against her skin. The stars above seemed to shine brighter, as if they too were watching over her, reminding her that she was not alone. Darius joined her shortly after, his presence a calming force in the chaos of her mind. Are you ready for tomorrow? He asked, his voice soft but filled with determination. Elara turned to him, her heart swelling with love and gratitude. I am, she said, her voice steady. I will fight for you, for the pack, and for our future. We have come too far to let anyone take it from us. Darius smiled, his expression filled with pride. Together, we are unstoppable. The next morning, the air was thick with anticipation. Elara stood at the front of the warriors, her heart pounding in her chest, not out of fear, but out of resolve. She had never been one to back down, and today would be no different. She was not just Darius's mate. She was the Luna of this pack, and she would lead them with all her heart. As they made their way to the battlefield, the Silverfang Alpha's army loomed in the distance. They were a force to be reckoned with, but Elara knew that their strength lay not in numbers, but in the unity of the Northern Territories. As the two armies faced off, Elara's heart beat in time with the rhythm of the pack's collective strength. The Silverfang Alpha sneered as he looked at her, his eyes full of contempt. You're the one who calls yourself Luna? He spat. How laughable. Elara's eyes narrowed, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. You may have strength, but you lack what we have, unity. We are bound by more than blood. We are bound by loyalty, by love, by honor. You will never break us. The Silverfang Alpha growled, his eyes flashing with fury. Then we will see whose strength truly matters. The battle began with a roar, the clash of steel ringing out across the field, but Elara stood firm, her focus unwavering. She fought, not just for herself, but for the pack she had come to love, for the future she and Darius had begun to build together. As the battle raged on, Elara's mind was clear, her movements precise. She fought with everything she had, not just with her physical strength, but with the heart and soul of the pack. And as the Silverfang Alpha finally fell, defeated by the strength of their unity, Elara knew that they had won. They had proven that no one could break them, not through force, nor through fear. Together, they were unbreakable. As Elara stood victorious beside Darius, the realization settled in. This battle was just the beginning. The road ahead would not always be easy, but she was no longer afraid. She had found her place, her strength, and she would fight for it until the very end. With Darius by her side, they were unstoppable, and together, They would continue to lead the Northern Territories with strength, love, and unity. The battle against the Silverfang Alpha had been fierce, but Elara stood victorious, her heart swelling with pride as the dust of the battlefield settled. The pack had fought with unwavering unity, and their strength had proven to be more powerful than any external threat. As she stood beside Darius, her mate and the Alpha King, she realized just how far she had come. From the rejected Omega hiding in the shadows to the Luna leading her pack with confidence, she had become everything she had once believed was impossible. The days following the battle were filled with celebrations, the pack rejoicing in their victory, but Elara knew the real work had only just begun. With the Silverfang threat neutralized, there was still much to be done to solidify their future and ensure that no one would ever threaten their peace again. But as she walked through the halls of the castle, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This was her place, and she had earned it. She had proven herself to the pack, to Darius, and to herself. The days of self-doubt were behind her. "We've done it," Elara said, her voice filled with emotion as she stood beside Darius in their private chambers, the weight of their triumph still settling in her chest. Darius smiled, his eyes soft but proud. "We have, Elara. Together, we've made sure that the future of the pack is secure." Elara nodded, her gaze meeting his. "But the work isn't over. There will always be challenges, always enemies lurking in the shadows. We have to be ready." Darius reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face, his touch tender. "And we will be," he said. "With you by my side, we are unstoppable." As Elara gazed out the window, the moon high in the sky above, she felt a sense of peace she had never known before. The road ahead would be filled with challenges, but she was no longer afraid. She had found her strength, her place in the world, and most importantly, she had found her purpose. Together with Darius, she would lead the Northern Territories into a new era, one where love, loyalty, and unity would be their greatest strength. The path was not always clear, and the future uncertain, but one thing was certain: Elara had found her destiny. She was not just the Luna, she was a leader, a partner, and the heart of the pack. As she stood beside Darius, her heart filled with love and determination, Elara knew that together, they would overcome any obstacle. Their bond, forged through trials and battles, would carry them through anything the future had in store. The Northern Territories had been built on strength, but now, it would be built on love, unity, and the unwavering belief that together, they could accomplish anything. Elara's journey, once filled with rejection and doubt, had come full circle. She was no longer the Omega who had been cast aside. She was the Luna who had found her place at the side of the Alpha King, ready to lead with him, ready to protect their pack, and ready to shape the future. And as the moonlight bathed the castle in a soft glow, Elara knew that her story was far from over. It was just the beginning. Together with Darius, she would rule with strength, wisdom, and love. Their reign would be one that would be remembered for generations, not just because of the battles they won, but because of the love that bound them together, a love that had the power to overcome anything. As they stood side by side, Elara knew that whatever came next, they would face it together as one. Their bond was unbreakable, their love unshakable, and with that, there was nothing they couldn't achieve. Immerse yourself in this captivating werewolf tale of love, strength, and destiny. Elara, once a rejected Omega, finds herself transformed into the Luna of the most powerful pack in the Northern Territories. After being cast aside and doubted by her pack, Elara rises to her true potential when she is chosen by Alpha King Darius. Together, they face external threats, internal struggles, and forge an unbreakable bond. This werewolf story explores the trials of leadership, overcoming self-doubt, and the power of love. As the pack faces new challenges, Elara steps up as the leader they need, proving that a werewolf's true strength lies not just in their physical power, but in their unity and heart. With each battle, Elara and Darius grow stronger, showing that destiny can be shaped through love and determination. As their journey unfolds, Elara's evolution from a forgotten Omega to a powerful Luna is a testament to the werewolf spirit, proving that even the most unlikely can rise to greatness. The Northern Territories will never be the same, as love, strength, and unity guide them to victory. This is not just a werewolf romance, but a story of resilience and the transformative power of finding one's place in the world.